from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling insight, news, reviews on a daily basis. Joining me as the co-host of the podcast for today, we have Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing well, my friend. Happy to be back once again on a Tuesday, April 11th. I can't believe it. We're already right back into the WWE fiscal calendar and post-Mania season, that is. And I'm happy to get into it because, it's been a wild 2 weeks post-Mania. There's so much to talk about. It's just an exciting time for wrestling all around.
Absolutely it is. And today, on a day where Billy Starks has signed with AEW, according to Tony Schiavone, Matt Hardy has revealed Jeff Hardy could return as soon as next month, and WWE Raw was hindered by major travel issues, causing Triple H to have to tear up the script for himself for once. We're also joined by Anthony Ricciardi. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. I'm looking forward to doing the show. It's first time the three of us have done one since the hotel.
Yeah.
I've done one with Clark, but it's the first time I've done one with you, Ben, since the hotel.
Yeah, what a wild weekend that was, WrestleMania. But yeah, we're going to get right into Monday Night Raw. And of course, the big headline coming out of last night's episode of Raw was that Trish Stratus turned heel for the first time in, a couple decades now. Trish, Becky and Lita were meant to defend their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. However, Lita was taken out before the match. Then somehow, some way, Trish Stratus decided to defend the title with Becky instead. I still hate it when they do stuff like that, but they did it. Becky and Trish lost the match. Trish was the one who was pinned. And then after the match, Trish Stratus took out Becky Lynch and beat her down standing tall, which this led to the question of, well, is she the one who took out Trish? No, is Trish the one who took out Lita? Or was it somebody else? Well, Anthony, I'll head to you first. Do you think that it was Trish who took out Lita? And what are your thoughts on the Trish heel turn?
Honestly, I like the heel turn for Trish because every time we've seen her come back, post her retirement, that every match is her last match and then she comes back. This is the first time she's been a heel in a really long time. So it's something fresh. I personally would love to see Trish and Lita at least one more time go at it. Whether or not it's soon or if they somehow drag this out to possibly SummerSlam to try to do something with it. I'm fine with Trish going against Becky for a while, if that's the direction, and then do the swerve that she was the one that took out Lita, and the eventual reignition of probably one of the greatest women's feuds of the greatest women's feud of the Attitude Era. I think that would be really fun to watch.
What about you, Clark?
I really like that idea, but I'll also say, as predictable as the turn was given the scenario last night, I thought Trish actually did her best work as a heel, and I thought the pop at Mania was super telling. The crowd exploded for Lita and not Trish. That blew me away. As a longtime Trish fan, I was as excited for Trish as Lita. We've seen Lita more recently than we have Trish.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened there. I would actually argue Trish has the better resume on paper all time over Lita.
She does.
And she did some amazing work as a heel in the past. I think that's when she really found her bell-to-bell acumen. That's when she became truly sublime. If we can see more of that, I'm excited for it. I hope that it isn't that Trish is the one that laid out Lita. I hope it's Bayley.
Oh.
Because I want to see Trish and Bayley versus Becky and Lita. That to me, because of Trish's ability to kind of work both the ultimate girl next door almost, babyface, as she did at certain points in her career, or even hotter than that, right? Like the
Yeah.
ultimate dream girl, the hottest girl at your high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? The one that you think about when you watch her at the lunch tables. That was Trish Stratus as a babyface. As a heel, she was the bully.
Yeah.
I think Bailey has kind of matched that energy as far as her ability to be, with Ponytail Bailey was beloved, and then role model Bailey, not so much. That dynamic of those two teaming up, I think that fits. And then Lita and Becky as the ultimate, I don't want to say underdogs, but fan friendly. It's who you want to root for, right?
Yeah.
The relatable characters that they are, and given their backstories, it's a perfect storytelling scenario to bring those two teams together in a tag team match. I would love that.
I've
I mean,
actually
go
got a
ahead.
little bit before I get back to you, Anthony. I've got a
Mhm.
little bit of an actual theory here in terms of maybe this, maybe Lita wasn't actually hurt at all. It just seemed, and to be honest, I don't mean to be mean in any way to Lita because she's phenomenal, but her acting, her selling of that injury last night was diabolical. And I just don't think that she's usually been quite good at selling. So it just led me to believe that she was faking it. And I was thinking to myself, hang on a second, what if Lita's just faked the injury to let Trish turn on Becky, and then we're going to get Lita and Trish teaming up to take on Becky Lynch against somebody else. I mean, I think that's a possibility. Maybe to just swerve fans a little bit, because no way is it as obvious if Trish was the one to take out Lita. It just feels way too obvious. But what were you going to say, Anthony?
I mean, part of the appeal with Lita and Becky is that both of them were viewed as second fiddle. Like
Yeah,
Trish was the dominant one during Lita's time, and Becky was kind of the back burner to Charlotte and all the other women. So that it makes sense that they're relatable. They're mirror images of one another when you look at it that way. I don't think I don't understand what the logic would be for Lita to fake an injury to give up a tag title just with Trish. I don't fully get why they would do that. I mean, I'm not sure where they would go with it. I mean, other than a possible Lita Trish matchup somewhere down the line is maybe a final match between the two of them.
yeah,
I don't really know where else they would go with it.
yeah. No, I mean, it is true. It does seem a bit far-fetched, but there's just something about that segment just seemed a little off to me. But perhaps, like you said, Clark,
It
maybe they are building to a Trish
it
and
reminds me a bit
Lita and
of
Becky versus
of
Trish and somebody.
was it Rikishi that laid out Stone Cold, correct?
I did it for The Rock.
Yeah, I did it for The Rock. It reminds me a little bit about that. I did it for Trish.
Well, they had no idea where they were going with that either.
Bailey coming to, maybe you have Bailey now turn on Damage Control, and I did it for Trish.
Yeah,
That could land.
that's definitely coming. The
You-
Becky
you-
Bailey turning on Damage Control.
Yeah.
Because I
that's
mean, last
that's
night's
the only,
Raw was absolutely. It was. They teased it so many times.
When can you imagine Bailey on the microphone talking about everyone talks about Lita, you forget about Trish. All I said about resume wise, she built the division, she built the women's title. We don't talk about Trish, you don't talk about me. I get robbed at Mania every year. Da da da.
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much juice there. I
Oh, absolutely.
love injecting Bailey into the storyline somewhere.
The only reason why I wouldn't say Bailey, to be honest with you, is because she's been involved with them now for so long, and I think the Damage Control story deserves to be the focus when they split rather than having Bailey elsewhere. And because of that reason, the person that I'd actually chuck in this feud is a returning Alexa Bliss, because I've
Ooh.
always thought a heel Alexa Bliss is just very reminiscent of a heel Trish Stratus. And I think she was inspired by heel Trish in many ways, but I just feel like that combo together to face Becky and Lita, that could be badass.
Dang, I hear where you're coming from there for sure. The only thing I would add is I would argue that the Bailey Trish tag team match against Becky and Lita can headline a pay-per-view.
That's a good point. Bailey is a good word.
And that's where I think those 4 names on a billboard if you can get to that as easily as that's the only argument I would make against, because I love what you were saying there, but just right, that could
Bailey's
be
a bigger draw. That is true. I mean, it's just my issue simply would be, I feel bad for Io Sky and Dakota Kai. Is the damage control storyline wouldn't really come to a sensible conclusion, I guess. But Anthony, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, they could, in theory, they could have damage control turn on Bailey and make Bailey a face and have her with Becky. And they could, in theory, do a mixed match of what they did at Mania. And it's Bailey, Becky, and Lita against Trish and whatever the new damage control is. If they, in theory, they could do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, they absolutely could. There's quite a few different ways that they could go about this. And I mean, I saw a few people on our Instagram post on the Wrestling Republic Instagram page saying that they were not fans of this Trish Stratus heel turn and it felt too random. And I think a few people were hinting that Vince was behind it or something. Honestly, I did not see it coming, and for that reason, I loved it. I was entertained. I was sports entertained. I think last night was a Triple H show, not a Vince show. But even if it was a Vince show, the fact was this entertained me. And at the end of the day, as a fan, that's all we can really ask for, for a segment to be entertaining. I'm interested to see where this goes now. And to be brutally honest with you, I've not been interested in anything Trish has done since he's returned, apart from last night when she turned heel. So I'm all for it. I mean, Clark, would you disagree?
I 100% agree. I think it's a testament to actually how much of a true legend she is. She read that crowd. It goes back to that crowd reaction at Mania. We were all there.
Yeah.
The pop for Lito and Becky was different than the pop for Trish, and that doesn't make sense. Trish was the original Hall of Famer. Trish was the face of the women's division. Lita was an unbelievable champion and an outstanding performer with a hardcore fan base. But in hindsight, Trish was the face of the women's division for a decade.
Yeah.
And for that to be the case, it's a testament to her ability to read the room, her ability as a performer to adapt and be ready. And I actually think it's good creative above all else, because they listen to the fans in a subtle enough way that it worked. She turned heel, and it made some people mad. It made the ones that were excited about Trish being back mad.
Yeah.
And she's going to be rooted against. And that's where she did her best work for the majority of her career. And I think it's a great thing.
She came in as a heel. I mean, that's also how she originally came in. And you think about it, they rebuilt the women's division around her because there was no women's champion, because Chyna left as the women's champion. There was a vacant title. And then her and Lita and the other women of that division built that thing up. There's no women's revolution now in WWE or AEW if it wasn't for Trish and Lita building that division.
That is a great, great point. And we have the Lori Taylor in the comments saying the gang is all here. We absolutely are. And this is going to be a banger of a show. But we're now going to move on to the next topic. And that was Cody Rhodes came out last night on Raw. He was actually slightly delayed. I presume this segment was probably meant to originally open the show, but he was delayed, but he did manage to get to the show in the end. And yeah, he came out, got a fantastic promo on Brock Lesnar. I really am a fan of a Cody promo, especially when it's at the start of a feud, because I feel sometimes as the feuds go on with him, the promos can get a little bit repetitive. But this one was fantastic. I'm really interested in the Lesnar versus Cody match. I've said it the last couple of days on the podcast about how it's really hard to build a pay-per-view when your champion's not there. But Cody versus Lesnar is a match you can build the pay-per-view around very, very easily. So it's certainly something I am on board with. However, one thing which was quite interesting in the promo was he challenged Brock Lesnar to a match, but he referred to Backlash as WrestleMania Backlash, when in reality, don't worry guys, the WrestleMania tagline has been dropped for this year's event. that is confirmed, and WWE reconfirmed it afterwards. But the interesting thing is, I actually don't think that it was an accident. Well, in that way, I don't think it was an accident. I think Cody Rhodes was in WrestleMania mode, and he ended up saying WrestleMania and then just threw on Backlash and was like, it's the one pay-per-view you can get away with saying it, because halfway through the word WrestleMania, Cody kind of paused for a second and then carried on into Backlash. So if that was the case, that is hilarious, as it's the only show in the year in which you can get away with saying WrestleMania and then throwing the actual show name on at the end, because of course that was what it was called last year. But Clark, what were your thoughts on the Cody Rhodes promo? And are you still excited for this Cody versus Brock Lesnar encounter?
Honestly, outside of the slight biff on the WrestleMania Backlash thing, which made me a little nervous about Vince, as you mentioned, I actually would argue that it was his best promo he's had since he's been in the WWE. It was awesome. He bridged every gap. He pulled on every heartstring. He touched every button that was necessary across the board. I'm so excited for Cody Brock. We're on the right track for a massive, massive payoff on this story that we all saw the t-shirts for, that we've all talked about all this time. We're ready for the cool payoff. Not just yet, because there's a little bit more to tell, but it's just keep pushing that chess piece along, and they're getting close to checkmate. I really, really, really loved it. Almost everything about it. I think what makes their storyline fun is they got the physicality out of the way to initiate it. So we might see some pull aparts along the way, and that entices me with Brock and Cody. And I also think there's potential for outside involvement, whether it be from the bloodline or not. I don't know. But if that's a surprise, that's where my gut's at. I think that's the move. Have Solo be the thorn in Cody's side for as long as possible through all of this.
Yeah, I mean, you, of course, gave that take on yesterday's episode of the podcast where you said, you hope that they kept building Cody throughout the year, and every step of the way Solo would screw him over. And then at the Elimination Chamber or Royal Rumble, Cody would finally be able to take care of Solo and then just be one-on-one with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And that take, I'm actually going to be posting it to the Instagram as a clip, as that was a phenomenal take, and I really like it. And I really like the idea of, finishing the story by having to, adding more to the story to be able to finish it. And also me and Anthony can rewear the same Finish the Story shirts next year as well. So, we get good value for our money.
Still an exclusive.
Brings the shirts back.
Exactly. But Anthony, what were your thoughts on this promo?
I mean, every time Cody's on the microphone, it's very clear he's Dusty's son. He has that unique ability to connect with an audience. Like Clark said, he tugs on the heartstrings. What you get from Cody is real and genuine. Like when he said, "Am I scared of Brock Lesnar?" Yes. Like that's real and genuine. It's very easy in a wrestling promo. No, I'm not afraid of Brock Lesnar, but it's genuine. It's real. And that's what I think works so well when Cody delivers promos, because there is a genuineness to it, or a sense of realism in it. So a feud with Brock, Cody knows how to tell a story, whether it's on the mic or in the ring. He is one of the best to ever do it. Brock knows how to work a Brock match, and knows how. Brock's very underrated in the sense that he knows what works too. He's not just the guy that comes in, the assassin for money. He does know how to work. And when you have Paul Heyman, so he's involved behind the scenes with anything probably to do with Brock and Cody, and the ties there. This is going to probably be, granted, we don't know what the card's going to be for Backlash. This is the must-see match. Yeah. This is going to be the match that delivers. Whether or not it's the main event, it probably should be if there's not a world title.
100%. Roman's not on the show.
Yeah, so it should be the main event. I don't think it's a one and done. I would be surprised if it was. I think this could be one hell of a feud that we weren't expecting, but we may be talking about at the end of the year as one of the best feuds.
Absolutely. I do 110% agree with that. And like I said earlier, there's not many matches without a world title which can realistically main event a pay-per-view, in my opinion, well, right? That's my honest opinion. I think to main event a pay-per-view, a title, a big storyline with a championship, a world championship has to be involved. However, Cody and Brock, that's an exception. That is
It's
one
a
hell of an
detraction.
exception.
It's a detraction match.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's 110% is. It's something which I'm super excited to see. In fact, I'm going to be honest, I'm more excited to see this than quite a few of Roman's matches from his championship reign. And that's not a dig at Roman, because I've loved Roman's championship reign. That's just a compliment to this match, Cody versus Lesnar. It really does get me excited. But we have a few comments here. We got firstly Melissa, a few comments on YouTube, and she's saying, hello, Melissa. Welcome to the podcast. And we've also got Anthony Manzano back saying, Anthony, realistically, when do you think WWE finally decides to change Dragon Lee's ring name? Well, Anthony,
I would think if they're changing it, and again, the Vince factor will play into it. If it's Vince, it's definitely changing it. If it's Hunter, the earliest if they do change it, it's main roster. Since they didn't change it in NXT, I don't think they're going to change it in NXT.
Yeah, no, I think you might actually get away with it for a while, to be honest with you, but we'll have to wait and see. And I'm also loving the Anthony relationship here as well. But yeah, what were you going to say, Clark?
I was going to agree as well. I'm not even sure Dragon Lee actually has any intentions to go to the main roster. I don't even know if that's the full plan.
Maybe not.
Long term.
What do you reckon his plan is?
I don't exactly know. It seems like an odd fit, as great as he's been in NXT, given the product. I watching the few matches I have, I feel like it's one of those things where, he signed and got money, and if they want to send him up, maybe for a match or two, but I don't know if, given what's gone down with the sale and everything, he was kind of the last big signing, big splashy one before, if he's not, unfortunately, the odd man out in the first place, and that's why they haven't changed the name yet.
Perhaps. I mean, that is a very intriguing point. I mean, the thing is, he is young. He's young. He fits the profile of what they want the NXT stars to currently be, so they can develop them in time for the main roster. However, you are right. The fact they haven't changed the name perhaps could be a sign of they don't really have many main roster plans for him, but that would be disappointing.
That would be sad.
They need a masked star.
In all fairness, WWE's always been looking for the next Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
The guy that can connect with the Latino audience, the mask. Dragon Lee might be the guy.
Very much. Oh, no. And I'm not rooting for that myself.
No, I know that.
By the way, I was not saying that in like, I hope that happens. I fear that for him, given the what's happened in the weeks, following his signing. That's my only concern, I guess, is my main point.
No, it is. It is absolutely a good point. And we've got Anthony Manzano in the comments on YouTube saying the reason why I'm asking about it is because looking at the history of luchadors when they come from Mexico to WWE, they don't allow them to usually keep their name. And that is also true. I mean, Rey Mysterio, they dropped the junior. But yeah, with Santos. I mean, the Santos thing was slightly different. He wanted to lose his mask before coming to WWE, which was a bit of an interesting one. But yeah, he put his mask on the line and lost it. And I don't actually know why. I'm sure it's out there, but I don't know why he wanted to lose the mask. But I know he did. But yeah, I mean, now I'm interested to see what the future of Dragon Lee is in WWE.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, it was a hell of a question, Anthony.
Just an answer to part of that, the question. I mean, WWE likes to own the name, so that's part of the reason they change them. And the other factor with a lot of times with the luchadors with the names, I think it becomes an issue with promotions like AAA, whether or not they own the name, because obviously I know that there was a huge fight over Pentagon at one point, fighting over the name of that. So I mean, there's rights issues with the names too. Sometimes that comes into play.
No, it absolutely does come into play. And like you said, WWE like to own the names for copyright, for merch, all that stuff. They just love it. And it's a good business move. That's not an insult to WWE. And when people have a go at WWE for it, I'm like, no, it's
intellectual property.
Yeah, it's sensible business. Yeah. The thing, what's bad is when they give them a really bad name instead. That's just, but that's that's an entirely different subject. The one other thing before we move on, I want to talk about is Owens faced Solo Sikoa in a fun match last night on Raw after the Usos got a victory against American Alpha. Sorry, the Alpha Academy, not American Alpha. And yeah, Riddle and Zayn ran straight from arriving at the building to come and make the save for Owens. Apparently, it wasn't quite as dramatic as that, but it wasn't far off. Apparently, they did just get to the arena right before the segment started, which is crazy. But yeah, Riddle and Zayn helped Owens in the end, and it looks like we are getting Owens and Zayn alongside Riddle taking on the Bloodline next. My question for you, Anthony, as me and Clark talked about this on the podcast yesterday, is: do you think Riddle is going to be the next challenger for Roman Reigns?
I really wouldn't depend on Riddle, considering his history. I mean, if you're looking for a big name to face him for Roman to just tear apart, then yeah, Riddle's a smart choice. I mean, he's got some name value due to his history. And if you're looking for somebody for Roman to just go through, yeah, Riddle's probably the smart choice. Riddle's not going to beat him, but yeah, Riddle wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, they obviously want him to beat somebody to get to that 1,000 days. And Riddle, considering the history of the bloodline, all that, taking him out. And obviously it was specifically Solo, but even still, it was on Roman Reigns' orders. That they wouldn't surprise me if they do that at the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, like Chaos pointed out yesterday, in Saudi Arabia, they usually do the big attraction matches. So doing a rematch between Reigns and Goldberg also wouldn't completely shock me. But I mean, there's quite a few things they could do, and we're just going to have to wait to find out really what it is. I mean, Clark, do you still feel that Riddle versus Reigns just isn't really something you're interested in seeing?
Well, I mean, it's not even like a full-blown lack of interest. I mean, I'm interested in seeing the match, but it's just predictable given the circumstances with the Saudi Arabia card and what comes with that. I hear where Anthony's coming from on the worrying about Riddle as a
dependable.
Dependability wise, yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, I guess he's proven enough to be brought back, and I'll give him a chance for the time being.
Yeah.
How he plays into the next 6 weeks, it does feel like a bit of filler to book a logical six-man on a weekly show.
Yeah.
And that's a little frustrating to me. I don't love when they do that. I wish they would kind of maybe elevate someone that doesn't necessarily need to be elevated like Riddle doesn't. I feel like he's already considered borderline main event high mid card amongst most fans. To bring in a third party for Sammy and Kevin to take on Solo and the Usos that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think of off the top of your head, I think would have been smarter in the long run.
Well, I mean, if they didn't turn Braun Breaker heel, Braun Breaker would have been a fantastic choice from making his debut on the Raw after Mania, and then him being the one, or the SmackDown after Mania, and him being the one to put himself alongside
I'm
Kevin.
Thinking even an LA Knight, it'd be a way to take LA Knight and put him on a main event in a main event match situation where he's protected by being surrounded by people that have been there before. I'm with you on Braun Breaker. I think that's a little too quick. Yeah, LA Knight was the one that I was like in my head thinking, just give him that shot. Like, hey, why would he help them? I don't know. And of all of the people that could explain that, LA Knight, I think, could pull that off. He could explain why he went out of his way to help LA Knight KO and Sammy. In a way that Riddle is not necessarily going to do.
Yeah,
it's just because he's a babyface.
In fairness, Solo Sikoa was
Solo, yes,
he was involved with the Usos when it happened as well. So I don't have an issue with Riddle being the guy, but it's just whether or not he's the guy to be the next challenger for Roman Reigns. But I also do see where you're coming from, where they could have put somebody else over. But then it comes back to my philosophy that I've always said about that I prefer it being younger guys who are, being elevated. Somebody LA Knight, I think he's too old to be elevated in that big of a way. I know it's a controversial one.
As an old
I
guy,
know it is.
As an old guy, I think you got to put the best over, no matter how old they are.
You know how old DDP was when he won his first
true,
world title?
that's true.
And Batista.
Wait, how old was DDP though? How old was he?
38?
Yeah.
And then Batista was 41?
It's still like 5. I think DDP's almost exactly 5 years younger than LA Knight is.
I believe Batista won his first world title at 41.
DDP might have been 43.
No, but Batista's the one. That's
Batista was up there too.
I mean, he's like 60.
Mm-hmm.
Love you, Batista. But he's like, could be a grandpa.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out the exact age of Batista when he first won the championship.
His kids might have kids.
Oh, no, Batista was 34, so he was still
34. Still, that's
he's
old.
still 10 years younger though than LA Knight is now.
Is he 44? LA Knight?
43, I think.
Oh, dude, he's got to fake his birth certificate like Miguel Tejada. He's got to go full bench warmers at this point.
No, I mean LA Knight is great. Just to be clear for people who aren't regular
So
listeners.
if LA Knight was 36,
if
LA Knight was 36, would you put him over?
Yes.
DDP was 43 when he won his first WCW world title.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Oh, Manzano's gonna tell me what the wrestling industry was like back then.
Oh, okay.
I love that.
But no, I mean, Anthony Manzano in the comments.
What were you born in 2000, Manzano?
Industry was different back then. They like to put more established guys over than younger guys back then. I mean,
thanks for the history lesson. I remember because I was there.
Oh, we need to get Anthony Manzano versus Clark now. What's the event Barstool do, Clark?
Rough and Rowdy. No, I'm kidding.
And Rowdy.
1990.
This dance card's
oh, he's older than me. Look at him.
Oh,
it's amazing. He's older.
Well, there you are, Clark. You need to be taking notes.
Same age.
But yeah, that is certainly something interesting. And Anthony Manzano is also saying that he doesn't think Riddle is the guy that's going to be taking on Roman. Oh, and he's also saying that he believes Braun Breaker should be the one to dethrone Roman. And I've said this before. I'd love for that to happen.
Breaker's not ready for that position.
I don't.
He's not ready for the position.
I don't think they're going to do it because I don't think in this day and age you can just throw the title on somebody when they're not established and not well known. So unfortunately,
there's a big difference between being the top dog in NXT to being the face of the company. Like, as much as I want whoever beats Roman to be made by this, you got to be ready for it too. And Breaker's not ready for it.
No. What I would say though, I'd love to see is I would love to see Braun Breaker getting a shot at Roman, maybe pretty much straight away when he gets called up, but then losing, just to be able to get more eyes on Braun Breaker. People find out on a smaller pay-per-view who he is and that, a bit more of the casual audience. And then from there, you can slowly start to build Braun Breaker up. As you were right, Anthony, he is one hell of a talent. But let's now move on to the last topic of the day, and let's talk about Bandido, because the AEW star had an interview with So Catch by Hal 2 this week, and he said that at some point he'd like to go to WWE. Not in this moment, but he hopes later. He said that he went to WWE for a tryout and they were amazing and all of this stuff. And yeah, he said that he'd really like to go to WWE and just kept putting WWE over for a couple of minutes, really. I'm going to be fully honest here. If I was Tony Khan, I would not be a fan of this. Your talent is going in on an interview and saying that they want to go elsewhere. Yes, he wasn't insulting AEW, right? Some of these articles out there are making it out like he was insulting AEW. He was not. He put AEW over in the interview too. However, what he is saying is that, his dream is to go to WWE. And it's not a fantastic look when, AEW is saying that they want to try and compete with WWE. And that is what AEW is saying. It's not like some, mythical thing that fans are making like it was at the start. AEW are publicly saying that they want to, compete with WWE. So I just don't think it's a great look for AEW talent to be going on radio and saying stuff like this. But what are your thoughts, Anthony?
I mean, on one hand, I do respect his honesty with it, just in the simple fact that, at the end of the day, pretty much every wrestler wants a WrestleMania moment. I mean, realistically, WrestleMania in WWE is probably a lot of their first exposures to the business. So I get that.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, it's incredibly stupid to say it now while you're under contract with the main competitor. It's not a smart thing to say. So would Tony and people in AEW be mad about it? Possibly. I think it's certainly probably not going to help a push. I mean, he's barely on it now.
He hasn't been
Really,
on it since January.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he's not even on the product. I don't even, is he even on Ring of Honor TV? Like, are they even putting him on there, or they're not using him at all?
I'm going to be
He's
honest, I
actually been
don't
down.
watch it
I
enough.
think he's been down with an injury for a few weeks.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, he may be dealing with some backstage heat from this. That would be my guess. But he's a hell of a talent. He'll bounce back regardless, whether it's in AEW, whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's Impact, wherever he ends up. He's a hell of a talent. He'll bounce back. This won't kill his career.
No, absolutely not. The other thing that I will say is, Clark, to your point, yes, he is injured. He's currently dealing with a little bit of a neck injury. I don't think it's anything that serious. I think it's just a little bit of an issue. But yeah, he is currently slightly hurt, which is why he hasn't been on television, which does make a bit more sense, to be honest with you. But Clark, what are your thoughts on what he said?
To be totally honest, I love you guys to death, but I think this is a bit of an overreaction. We've had the bidding war of 2024 on television this year. All year long, we've had Dax Harwood talking about backstage issues. We've had backstage issues on TNT on a reality show. This company's pretty clear, cut and dry. They don't really care about that stuff. That'll be hammered out in negotiations in the long run if he gets a little bit of backstage heat for it. Who doesn't need a little bit of heat every now and again just to fire themselves up and work that much harder? I think once he comes back from injury, it's all good. Of course, if you're a smart self-promoter as a independent contractor in an industry like this, you got to promote yourself. And just the threat of him potentially going to WWE is helpful in future negotiations, but his talent's pretty dang undeniable. If he can match it with the charisma and build the following that I think he's capable of, I think this is no less than a tiny blip on the radar.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really hope you're right, because like both of you have said, he is one hell of a talent. I've been a fan of his for a couple of years now, since I first actually saw him at a Ring of Honor show, and I was like, damn, this guy is good. And at that time, there was a lot of rumors that WWE were going to pick him up. Actually, he wasn't a Ring of Honor show I saw him at. I can't remember where it was. It wasn't a Ring of Honor show. But then he ended up, I thought at that time WWE were going to sign him. There was a few rumors, but he ended up signing at that time with Ring of Honor. And I was quite shocked by it, to be honest, back then. And then obviously you had the entire Ring of Honor situation, and he's been picked up by AEW. But I really do hope he recovers from this injury quickly, and he does get the spotlight he deserves. And yeah, I hope these comments don't get him too much backstage heat. Although you mentioned Dax Harwood and MJF, I think MJF gets away with a lot of it because of his gimmick, and Dax did get a lot of backstage heat on him for those comments originally, and is a bigger star, which is why I worry that he might get a bit of backstage heat. But also, to your point, Clark, hopefully long term, this won't really be anything. We've also got oh wow. We got a comment come in here from Anthony Manzano, and he says, for me, and I know this will anger a lot of fans, but in my honest opinion, MJF is just a rip-off Miz. I mean, what do you have to say about that, Anthony?
MJF is a once-in-a-generation talent. He is phenomenal on the mic. He can go in the ring. Miz has certainly earned my respect over the years, but MJF is the gold standard on that mic.
Absolutely. What about you, Clark?
Oh, MJF is the best heel in the business right now. It's funny because Roman Reigns is a heel, so I'm not trying to compare them directly, but for pure classical heelish tactics, it's MJF. Roman Reigns is probably the best storyteller going. MJF is the best pure heel going right this second. And everything Anthony said about generational talent, I agree with 1000%. While The Miz is great, he doesn't have he's maximized his talent to an extent that if MJF did, unfortunately, we're going to lose him from wrestling.
Yeah.
Is the way I would put it. Proportionally speaking, we would lose if he was able to maximize his talent the way that Miz has, which I think is impressive. It's a testament to Miz's work ethic. But if MJF were to ever maximize his ability as a performer the way that The Miz has, he wouldn't be he'd be The Rock.
Look at the age thing too. Miz is where he's at now. Look at where MJF is, and he's substantially younger than The Miz. Yeah. So we're really scratching the surface. Now, who knows how long MJF's going to stay in the business, but while he's there, he's leaving his mark.
Absolutely.
100%. And I'm also, if I'm going to be completely honest, the entire Hollywood thing, I 100% do see it happening. But I do have a feeling that MJF's actually going to stay in wrestling a bit longer than a lot of us suspect. And because of how obvious he's making it sound that, he's leaving Hollywood and all this, I actually think he cares about wrestling a little bit too much.
I think his passion for wrestling is on par with similar to a John Cena, who could have probably gone earlier than he did.
Yeah.
But truly enjoyed the intimate, the fan interaction that you just don't quite get performing in front of a camera. Of course, it's on camera in wrestling, but it's completely different with a filled stadium, right? It's unique. It's unique to basically wrestling and maybe stand-up comedy or music.
Yeah.
Right. That live stage feeling of that's hard to replicate.
It absolutely is.
MJF's very selective in when he wrestles too. That's the other thing. So he's protecting his body. In theory, could go longer. In theory, because he does wrestle less than, let's say, a Cena or Miz or any of these other people. So he's very selective.
That is true. And honestly, I really, really loved the John Cena comparison you made, Clark, because that is bang on what I think will happen. I think he won't leave it too late. That's not what I'm saying. When I don't think he's going to leave it too late.
I don't think John did either.
Than he could have. Yeah. I almost said too late, and I was like, I cannot say that because but Anthony Manzano's one last comment here saying he believes, Clark, you're pushing it a little bit as he's nowhere near Dwayne Johnson in terms of microphone skills. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually disagree there.
I disagree with that, but I want to answer his question 2 questions back just in 1 second. Jim Ross is my hero as a broadcaster. I am absolutely not on that side. That's my hero, period.
For those, he's the greatest of all time.
I've read both books. He's the greatest professional wrestling broadcaster of all time. There's no doubt about it, and I could not be more with you on that.
For those listening on audio,
for
those listening on audio, Anthony Manzano, a couple of questions that was asking what fans' thoughts were on fans attacking JR, saying that he should retire from commentary despite the fact that he recently suffered from a stroke. And I mean, we're all big fans of JR here. I'm glad he's not doing Dynamite anymore, to be honest with you, because I feel like the 2-hour show is maybe a little bit too long for him. But he is an absolute legend in the business. Nobody here will deny that. I'll assure you of that. But AEW's announced team. I'm actually a fan of it now. I think Nigel McGuinness as well. I'd love to see him perhaps on some AEW television. I mean, I don't know if he's now doing Dark Elevation or anything because I know he is All Elite. But obviously he's calling Ring of Honor as well. But Anthony, before we wrap it up, very quickly in about 20 seconds, say your thoughts on Anthony Manzano saying that he's nowhere near Dwayne Johnson in terms of the mic.
I mean, Rock's once in a generation, so is MJF. I mean, the Rock's where he's at now. MJF is younger. And he's that good. So we don't know what MJF will ultimately end up with.
Yeah. But that basically brings us to the end of the show, guys. It's been a banger. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you're listening on Spotify, please share it with your friends. There's a lot of ways to listen to this podcast now, and we're just getting started, guys. We're here every single day, and we'll be back tomorrow, probably the same time, maybe an hour earlier. Keep a lookout on the YouTube, Instagram, and website as we have early on in the day, every single day, the time that the show will come out. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys soon.